Hey guys, it's Evan. Today I'm going to be doing a quick video for you guys on how to change and tune drum heads. So today I'm working on my personal concert snare drum. This is a metal snare drum, but it would be the same kind of process if you have a wooden one, and the same kind of process if you're tuning toms on a drum set. So the first thing that we're going to do is just take off the old head. I like using this kind of drum key because it takes off heads a little bit faster. Try to loosen the tension on the heads evenly, so going across just kind of like you would if you were retuning. And I like to just get it to about finger tight at first, and then I loosen them the rest of the way by hand. Right, now that they're all loose, you can just take the hoop off. I like to keep all the lugs on the hoop just because it's easier to put them back on later. I'll set this just on the ground. Then I can take the old head off. And while you have the head off, it's always a good idea to kind of clean up the drum. So the easiest thing to do is just take a wet paper towel or something like that, go around the edge. This is an older drum, so you can see there's some little cracks in it, in the rim, but just wipe it down as much as you can. It's also a good idea to clean out the inside. This one has never been taken apart and cleaned, so there's some dead flies in there and lots of dust and stuff, so I'll make sure to get all that cleaned out too. Alright, now that the inside is pretty well cleaned out, I'm also going to do some cleanup on the outside. As you can see, there's some kind of rust building up on this since it's metal, and just some dirt. So because it's metal, something that you can use to clean a metal snare drum is just tin foil. So you just kind of fold it up, and then if you can find especially dirty spots, just kind of put the tin foil on that. Make it nice and shiny. Something else that works well, and especially if you're using cleaning a wooden snare drum, is just Windex. Doing the same kind of thing, just wiping down the outside. And you especially want to get underneath where the lugs were, just because that you can't clean while they are on. Alright, now that that's clean enough for now, we'll put the new head on. I'm using an Evans orchestral head. Different heads work well for different snare drums. Because this is my concert snare drum, I like using this kind of head. For my drum sets, I use different heads, but this is what I found is best for a concert sound. Alright, now that the head's on, get my hoop back out and just put the lugs, line them up where they go in. I'll finger tighten them first, just to make sure they're all fed in through where they screw in, and then we'll tune them higher after that. Okay, now that they're all finger tight, I'll come back in with an actual drum key and tune them. We always want to make sure we get even tension around the head. Something that you can do to start is kind of push down on the head, and you can hear it cracking a little bit, but it won't break. This is just to stretch it out a little bit. It'll make it a little bit easier to tune it up eventually. So when you're tuning a drum, you want to use a star pattern or a cross pattern. You can call it either thing. So you'll start on one. So if I start here, I'm just going to make sure I do the same amount of tension. So I'll just do 2 full turns around to start. And then I want to go directly across the snare drum. Do that same thing. And then from there I want to move just one to my right. and then go back across. And you'll do this all the way around the drum. Alright, so I've gone 2 full turns around. You can hear it's cracking a little bit, but it won't break for sure. So now I've done my first little tune-up. It's definitely still low for where I want it. You can hear. Still really low and boomy. So I want to tune it up a little bit more. Just always making sure that I'm using even tension all the way around. So I'll start in the same place and give it another full turn for now. Alright, we've got it around one more time. And now let's take a listen. That's much better. So now that it's about the pitch that I want it to be, you want to make sure that everything is in tune with each other. You want to check all the lugs. So the way you can do this, the best way is to just use your ear and hear what sounds like it's in tune. But there's different ways. You can buy a drum dial, you can use a tuner on your phone. I usually just use my ears, but it's up to you. So I'll pick one lug to go off of. Since I started tuning with this one, I'll start with this one. You want to listen for the pitch, sometimes better with the snares off. Listen for the pitch of that lug, and then just go around the head and see if the other lugs have that same pitch. Yeah, you can hear that one is a little bit lower, so I'll crank it up a little bit. Okay, so I think I have it pretty even now. Just test it out. Yeah. Usually you can tell if it's out of tune, if it rings kind of strange, especially with the snare off. My snare drum has a dampener inside of it, so it doesn't usually ring, but if I turn it all the way down. Yeah, you can hear it doesn't sound like it's vibrating against itself. Everything seems to be in tune. Yeah, so that's this side. If you're just replacing one side of the head, then that's pretty much all you have to do. This goes the same for drum set snare drums, drum set toms, anything like that. Because this is a concert snare drum, I have it tuned a little bit higher, so it gets a really dry sound. If you want something a little bit louder, you might tune it a little bit lower. If you want something that rings a little bit longer, you might tune it down, or tune it a little bit differently. With tom heads, you can listen for a different pitch, or pitch in relation to the other toms on your drum set or your snare drum. But that's the basics of it. It's making sure you have that even tension on the head. It's always good to kind of push on it, and remember that because you just put a new head on, it'll stretch out eventually, so you might have to retune it. I am also actually going to replace the bottom head. We call this the resonant head, or sometimes the snare side head of this drum as well. So if you're interested in seeing how you change that, you can go ahead and keep watching. So this is an older snare drum. I've never replaced the bottom head, so it's always a good idea to replace the resonant head, not as often as the snare or the batter side head, but still every once in a while. The snare side head is a little bit trickier because you have the snare in the way. So the first thing that we have to do is get the snare off so we can take the hoop off. This drum, you can see, has screws that attach the snare. Most drums don't. It's just something that you can take off with a drum key, but because this one is a little bit older, it has that. So I will start by just taking a screwdriver and unscrewing this. It's also important that you remember where the snare was in here so it can be put back in the right position. So I'm just going to take a Sharpie and make a little mark on either side of where the snare goes in, so I can make sure to put it back there once I'm done. I'll just take a screwdriver and unscrew these. And you don't have to unscrew it all the way, just unscrew it enough that the snare comes out. So I'll put it out on one side, and then see if I can get it all the way through. Oh, it doesn't look like I'll be able to. So I'll have to do the same thing over on this side. I'll unscrew over here and see if I can get the snare out that way. Now that I have the snare off, I can take off the hoop. So again, I'm just going to take a drum key and loosen all of the lugs. Try to do it evenly and go around the head. And then again, once they're loose enough that I can just do the rest with my fingers, I will. Alright, now that those are all loose, I'll take the hoop off. And try to keep, remember what side it faces. So because we have these holes for the snares, you want to make sure those stay in the same place. Alright, so I'll take the old head off. And just like last time, I'm going to just wipe down the rim of this side. I already cleaned the inside, so I'm not too worried about that. But I just want to get all the way around the rim. Make sure there's no dirt under the head. And then same thing as before, I'm just going to use a little bit of Windex and clean underneath the lugs. Okay, so now that it's all clean, I can go ahead and put the new head on. For this, I'm also using an Evans orchestral batter side head. I'm going to try to line up the logos with the one on the other side just so it looks nice. So this is a different kind of head than we had on the front. This is a resonator head, or because it's for a snare drum, it's a snare side head. It's just a little bit thinner. It's not the same coating as on the other side. So we'll put that on. We'll grab the hoop. And then since I made sure that I remember what side it goes on, I can line up where the snares are going to go. And then just put the lugs back where they fit in and finger tighten them. Alright, now that they're finger tight, I will go ahead and tighten them up. This one, you don't have to worry about pushing down too much in the middle beforehand just because it's a little bit thinner. But we do want our snare side head to be quite a bit higher tuned and tighter than the other side. We use the term tabletop tight when we talk about our snare side heads. So it's like it sounds, it should be as flat as a table. So you really want to crank it up a little bit. You're able to be able to see there's a little bit of a wrinkle here just because the rim is a little bit lower. So you just have to be careful of that and tighten it a tiny bit more just to get that to flatten out. Alright, so that was my first time around. Still has a little bit of give in it, so I will tighten it a little bit more just to make sure it's really tabletop flat. So now it feels pretty good. It'll stretch out a little bit, so you might have to go back and retune it a little bit later, but for now, it is where we want it to be. The next big step is putting these snares back on. So because I marked where they are, it'll be pretty easy for me to just screw them back in. So I'll start with the side by the throw off. Just make sure you go through that little slot. You can't see because it's on the wrong angle, but I just lined it up with the line that I made before. I'll just screw it back in there. Same thing on this side. And make sure you turn the snares off when you're putting them back on. Or if you had them on when you took the snare off. Just the same, so you can for sure get it back in the right place. So you can see, got it pretty much lined back up there. Just screw it back in. Alright, now that the snares are on, should be all good to go. Yeah, you can hear the snares are low right now. All you have to do is make sure some more snare tension, or you just pull them a little bit tighter when you put them back on. So you have to adjust that. That's about it. You can always readjust the tension of the heads if you like it a little bit lower, a little bit higher. And the same would go for a drum set, snare drum, any of that kind of thing. So thanks for watching, and hope you learned something from this.